All right, let's talk about something that every single one of us deals with: emotions. Now, what if I told you the goal isn't to fight off those tough feelings, but to actually understand them? To go from being stuck in this messy, confusing cloud to having some real clarity. So let's kick things off with a question I think we've all asked ourselves, right? Why do emotions feel so huge sometimes? So overwhelming that it feels like they're completely in the driver's seat. I mean, it's a feeling we all know. And that's exactly the problem we're going to get into today. A really strong emotion, it rarely feels like just one thing, does it? It's more like this big, foggy, intense cloud, right? It's this whole jumble of thoughts and physical feelings all swirled together. And that's why it can feel so out of control, so irrational. It feels like something that's happening to you instead of something that's coming from you. But what if we've been looking at this all wrong? Let's completely reframe the purpose of our emotions. Instead of treating them like an enemy you have to fight, think of them more like an inner dashboard. And here is the absolute game changer. Emotions, even the really tough ones like fear, anxiety, sadness, they are not a bug in your system. They're not a defect. They are literally an internal alert system. Their only job is to get your attention, to flash a light that says, hey, something important is going on here, and to get you ready to act. So in other words, they're just data. Okay, so if emotions are data, how the heck do we read it? How do we break through that big fuzzy cloud? Well, we need a tool. Think of it like a microscope, something that lets us zoom in and deconstruct the emotion to see what it's really made of. It turns out pretty much any emotional experience you have can be broken down into three key parts. First, there are your thoughts, the story you're telling yourself about what's happening. Then there are the physical sensations, how it actually feels in your body. We're talking a racing heart, tight shoulders, that pit in your stomach. And finally, your behaviors, what you actually do, or even just what you have a really strong urge to do. The key thing to remember is that these three aren't separate, they're all tangled up, each one feeding the others. Okay, let's make this super concrete with a case study. So here's John. He just had a chat with his boss. His immediate thought is, I acted like a total idiot. I asked such stupid questions. That thought, it instantly triggers a physical sensation, a big rush of adrenaline, he starts feeling hot, and the behavior that follows, he just clams up. He completely stops participating in the conversation. See how that works? The thought, the feeling, the action, they all weave together to create that one big cloud we call anxiety. All right, so that was our microscope, zooming way in. Now, let's pull back. Let's switch to a wide-angle lens so we can see the whole picture, the full context. And for that, we're going to use a really simple but powerful model called ARC. It helps us map out the entire journey of an emotion from start to finish. So, ARC, it's just an acronym. A is for antecedent, that's the trigger. R is for response, that's the emotion itself, the whole cloud. And C is for consequence, what happens next, the result. Every single emotional experience you have follows this exact path. Let's dig into that A, the antecedent, for a second, because this is so important. Sometimes it feels like an emotion just hits you out of the blue, right? But it never really does. The trigger, the antecedent, can be super obvious, like getting a weird text. But it can also be way more subtle. It could be an argument you had this morning, or something as simple as being tired or hungry. Heck, even just a random thought or an image flashing in your mind can be the trigger. And what about the R, the response? Well, that should sound pretty familiar, right? That's the cloud. It's our three-component model we just talked about. The thoughts, the physical sensations, and the behaviors all rolled into one. So you see, our microscope model fits perfectly inside this bigger wide-angle lens model. Okay, now for the C, consequence. And I really want you to lean in for this part because this is absolutely crucial. See, every response has two types of consequences. There's the short-term one, which honestly usually feels pretty good. It gives you immediate relief. But then there's the long-term consequence, and that's where the real problem is. That's what can actually keep the fear going, keep us stuck, and often it goes completely against the person we actually want to be. This exact conflict, this trade-off between feeling better right now and the pain it causes later, this needs us straight into something called the avoidance trap. And trust me, this is a powerful, vicious cycle that catches so many of us, and we don't even see it happening. Let me tell you a quick story to show you exactly how this works. Picture a rabbit just hopping around, foraging for food. It turns a corner and bam, there's a fox. Instantly, the rabbit's fear system goes into overdrive and it bolts. It runs for its life.
And that makes perfect sense, right? That's a super helpful adaptive survival response.
But here's the kicker. The next day, the rabbit doesn't go anywhere near that part of the forest. And the day after that, and the day after that. That one scary experience taught it a new rule. That place is dangerous. Avoid it. It becomes this rigid, automatic behavior, even if the fox is never, ever seen there again.
And that, right there, is the avoidance trap. When we avoid the thing that scares us, we never give ourselves the chance to learn anything new. We never learn that the scary thing we're imagining probably won't happen. Or, and this is just as important, we never learned that even if it did happen, we could actually handle it. The fear never gets challenged, so it just stays.
Have you ever thought something like this? Logically, I know it's not dangerous, but I still avoid it. That sentence is practically the theme song of the avoidance trap. Your rational brain is totally on board. It knows the threat is tiny. But that powerful, learned emotional response from the past just hijacks the system and takes over. So, wow, that's a lot to take in. What do you do with all this? Where do you even start? Well, the good news is, it's not about making some huge dramatic change overnight. It's really just about taking one small but absolutely crucial first step. And this is maybe the most important takeaway of all. The first goal isn't to force yourself to change your behavior, not at all. The goal is simply to start paying attention, to become a scientist of your own experience, a curious, non-judgmental observer. Just start noticing your own arcs in action. What was the trigger? What was my response? And, most importantly, what was the short-term relief and what was the long-term consequence? Just that act of noticing, that awareness, that is the first step towards clarity. So I'll leave you with a question to carry with you. As you go about your life, just start to gently notice what's giving you that quick hit of relief in the moment, but might actually be creating a long-term trap. What's your version of the rabbit avoiding that part of the forest? Just becoming aware of that is, without a doubt, the most powerful place to begin.